What is Urban View?
Where talk empowers and becomes action.
Lawyers, journalists, activists
gather daily to dissect and understand and intellectualize around issues and ultimately shape a better world.
Inspiration that people need to build the lives that they want to live.
It is about freedom, moving people in the right direction, and it is about a unity and a vision of Urban View.
It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care about your age, politics, your race. It impacts all of us.
At Urban View, you get to see that play out every day. This is a community.
It is one of the reasons why Urban View is so vitally necessary for this time.
We are not in this journey alone.
And that's how we empower our listeners.
So come on home to Urban View,
where talk empowers and becomes action.
What a blessing it is to be in a space that can do all of that.
That's Urban View, Sirius XM Channel 126 and the Sirius XM app. Free with all of our trials and popular plans.
Never gonna stop. Get down.
Music defines a generation. Music is a soundtrack of revolution. Music is a soundtrack of movement. Music is a soundtrack of cause. There is an intersection of politics and pop culture that you didn't even know existed. There's some boy, some girl sitting in a cubicle along K Street, somewhere in D.C. A boy, a girl sitting in a cubicle along a hill with a Capitol with a dome who has single-handedly decided what you wore today. Whoa.
Mike Muse is an industrial engineer, a music executive, a political architect. He breaks down the intersection of politics and pop culture. This is the Mike Muse Show.
What's up, brother? It's your boy, Mike Muse. Welcome to another conversation, the Mike Muse Show. I am so excited to be in conversation with you all today. Happy Saturday, my people. Happy Saturday. It has been a week. But listen, I am excited because the weather is finally taking a turn here in New York City. I don't know what it's like in your neck of the woods, as they say, but it is finally spring. We hit 80-some degrees yesterday afternoon, and I'm happy about that, folks. The allergies are kicking my butt. I'm sure it is for most of you, but I'm enjoying it. Typically in New York City, because of climate change, we only get about a week of spring. It can be 70 degrees, 75, 80, 85 degrees for a week, and then the week after it gets to be almost 90-some degrees with humidity, and so it goes straight to summer. So I'm happy that we're getting a couple of good weeks in spring. There's nothing like spring here in New York City. I am a big fan of seeing the seasons change. I know a lot of people don't like the winter time, but I do. I like the winter. It gives me something to look forward to in the spring, which then gives me something to look forward to for summer, then fall, and then the winter, and the cycle starts all over again. I don't know if I can live in a city or a place where it's the same temperature year-round. I know that sounds crazy, but I know some of you can live in that type of weather and climate where it can be 75, 80 all year round. That's perfect for you. But I don't know. I need change. I think change is good when it comes to that. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts. Are you a all-seasons kind of person? Do you like year-round warm weather? Hit me up at I am Mike Muse, M-U-S is in Sam E, because let me tell you, something that's changing with the weather that always gives me something to look forward to in the summertime is the month of June, because that is the NBA playoffs and championship game. Typically happens in June, and I'm bummed that this year I would not see my King James playing. The Lakers are out. The Minnesota Timberwolves sent LeBron and the squad packing, folks. Now, look, give credit where credit is due. Minnesota, them boys came to play in this series. But this just isn't about one playoff run. This is going to be like a little bit of a bigger question now with LeBron as we go into this off season. Does he have another season left in him? At the start of the season, I said that LeBron would just want to play one more season so that he can be on the same court with him and his son, Bronny. I had the pleasure of being in L.A. and at the game when Bronny made his debut. And I said after he plays the season, I don't think LeBron would come back. But after watching LeBron James in that game, I had the chance to be in L.A. too when Luka made his debut from the Dallas Mavericks onto the Lakers team. I saw the athleticism LeBron has, and I still see a couple seasons left in LeBron. I definitely don't see him stopping. His athleticism is just unmatched. The power and the speed and the aggressiveness that he has is unbelievable. And his emotional intelligence and mental stability when key games are on the line, it's something to be marveled at. Now the question is, does he have the right pieces around him? I'm not making excuses for anybody, and obviously the conversation, the GOAT should be able to win at all costs, and I get that argument. But Luka didn't have a good playoff post run this season. It didn't allow. He was very inconsistent in his play, so it didn't allow LeBron to be able to depend on his guy when he needed him the most. And also, too, let's be real, those games were close. They only lost by a couple of points each game down the stretch. So I don't know if this is LeBron's last season. It could be. I think the question is going to be, what does LeBron still want to play for, right? Does he feel he has anything to prove? I don't think he has anything left to prove. He's 40 years old, man, and the NBA still playing this competitive. I'm a big believer of going out while you're on top, going out while you're healthy, going out while you are still viewed as the king and while you are still viewed as the GOAT. I know it's a very divisive conversation around LeBron, but I don't know. I think there's another season left in him. I think give him and Luka a chance to build over the season, to see what they can come up with, to see how the off-season training goes, and see if they can gel even more. And then I'll be curious to see what happens with Bronny and how that will impact his decision to continuously to play in the NBA. But having LeBron James not in the NBA just wouldn't seem right. I know that day's going to come, and we're going to have to see it. But until then, I don't know. I'm not ready to let LeBron James go yet. I've been with that brother since he got drafted from high school to Cleveland. I was a Cleveland fan because of him. Then I went to Miami because of him. Then I came back to Cleveland because of him. And now I'm a Lakers guy because of him. So LeBron taught me to be a players first fan versus a team. So now I'm all about players and individuals. And so LeBron definitely broke that mode. But what teams I'm excited to watch, though, the next series I'm excited for is the Knicks versus the Celtics. That is going to be a good game. That's going to be a really good series. The Celtics are a fun team to watch, man. Their combinations is just so exciting to watch. Them boys can ball. The Knicks, too, man, they're a scrappy team. I love watching the Knicks, but I do believe that the Knicks had to fight so hard against the Pistons this last series that I think they might have expended a lot of energy, where the Celtics were able to rest for almost a week before the gameplay begins. And so I think that the Celtics are going to have a competitive advantage with this game. I think, too, the Celtics are a much more well-rounded team, and I think the Celtics will be calm under the pressure. I mean, they've already cut down the nets before, so I can see them wanting to get back to cut down the nets again and to raise up that trophy one more time. They're a young team still. They're kind of hitting their stride. They haven't peaked yet. So it's going to be really exciting to watch. I know a lot of people are really interested in this Cleveland-Indiana game and series, but I'm not. I don't know. It feels weird, right? I know they're balling. They're doing great, but it's not exciting for me to watch. But we'll see what happens. But now that my King James is not in it, I'm rooting for if I guess come out on the West Coast. I'm excited to see what the Warriors do, but how far Steph can go. And I'm definitely interested to see what's going to happen in the Eastern Conference between the Celtics and the Knicks. So, yeah. So much more to follow on that one. I don't have much of a race in this one, so I won't be talking too much trash on this one because, my guy is out. But those are some of the teams I'm going to be watching and some of the teams that I am going to be following. And obviously really paying attention to see what LeBron James is going to do during the offseason if he gives us any indications. But now we pivot, folks, from the court to the economy because right now something even bigger is being tested, and that is the strength of your wallet. So forget about the strength of LeBron James being able to run up and down the court. It's about the strength of your wallet, and if our wallets have the capacity to make it down the home stretch to get to the end of the year into the holiday season, and I said the holiday season very intentionally. I'm going to talk about that in a few moments here. President Trump's new tariffs on China are not just political theater. They are reshaping global trade and redefining what your paychecks covers. Oh, really quickly, too, as well, I forgot. I have Lettucey coming up after this, so make sure you stay around for Lettucey. Can't wait to unpack her new album, and she's such a vibe for me, so I can't wait to get into a conversation with her. But, sorry, I digress. It's easy. It's the weekend, folks. So back to tariffs, and the tariffs that are hitting nearly every product category, from electronics to toys to groceries. The numbers are staggering. I like to give you guys some data. I'm a big data guy. I don't like to do opinions and feels. Let's kind of just do some top-line data. There is 145% tariffs on most Chinese imports. There's also, that's on top of a baseline 10% universal tariff on all imports globally. And select goods like steel and aluminum carry an even higher 25% duty. So do a simple math equation for you. Let's say if a product costs about $100 from China, now that will cost about $245 by the time it hits the U.S. market. And no, that's not paid by China. That is paid by us, by the importers, the retailers, and ultimately by us, the consumers, right? So think about that. Something that costs $100 based upon this tariffs now of 145%, the cost would be $245. That's a lot. That's a lot, folks. Let's be clear. A tariff is a tax, period. And there's no way getting around it. It's a surcharge. The government puts on products brought in from another country. Companies that import, let's say like Walmart or Target or like your local store, your local retailer, your local mom and pop shop, they pay that fee. These individuals, they have three options. They can, one, absorb the cost, but absorbing the cost eats into their profits and their margins, which can also lead to layoffs and or closures, shutting down the businesses. They can do two, which is pass it to you, the consumer, which is most businesses don't want to do, because in the end, they will ultimately lose customers along the way. Or three, they can cut inventory and stop selling it all together. And the issue with that is that creates a supply and demand issue, right? And in particular, if it's a popular item or an item that a lot of people have, if it's limited supply, that means the cost is going to be higher, right? And so that means that we go into the inflationary territory. So when you're wondering why a blender that was $89.99 is now $149.99, that's what's happening. It's this increase due to tariffs. We're already seeing the effect in how Americans shop. There's been a spike in preemptive buying, people rushing to get electronics and toys before the prices go up. This is what we're seeing has impacted over the week with the GDP, a little bit of a shrinkage in the GDP, and that's because in the first and second quarter, we saw a lot of individuals ordering their imports ahead. So the more imports that are coming in, less exports are going out. That creates a trade deficit, right? That creates an imbalance. And when you have more imports coming in, that has a really impact on our GDP. But now it's because people are doing this preemptive shopping and buying because of this dynamic. Let's look at a statistic that I saw during the week where it said retail sales of large appliances jumped 19% in the last 3 weeks alone, right? According to Nielsen IQ, as families rushed to beat the next price hike. At toy stores, some brands have already increased prices by 12 to 15% on imported goods. And for those not able to buy now, these consumers, you're left deciding whether to absorb the increase later or go without. And that's especially hard as we head again into back to school season and the holidays, right? Because when you think about it, I know I just talked about the season change now, we're just now in May, but a lot of schools, and particularly like in the Midwest, they start school in the South, they start school in like late July, August. So although we're just getting out of school now, that back to school shopping is going to have to come up. The holidays are going to start coming up. There's a reason why we say Christmas in July. That's because a lot of, particularly if you think about, editorial content, the editorial content starts thinking about Christmas and holiday shopping right now. And so when you think about, the best gifts of the year, where they have the price listed, that is included based upon what they're seeing now, right? When you think about what stores are going to be ordering ahead of time for the holiday season, this is what they're ordering now. And so this has a big impact when it comes to holiday shopping. Right, so and speaking of the holidays, let me just paint the picture. More than 80% of all toys sold in America are imported from China. If you think about all the things, do an inventory this weekend, right? Go around your crib, Look at some of the different products that you bought, some of the toys you may have bought from your kids, some clothes that you may have bought from yourself. Check the price, check the tag. Most of the tags will say made in China. 90% of Christmas decorations and artificial trees, same, come from China. I love getting real trees. I always get real trees. Interesting enough, though, there is these two women that come from Canada, and they set up in my neighborhood, and they have these beautiful trees that they set up every Christmas holiday. And I'm just curious now, will that have an impact on them because they are Canadian and they're bringing their trees from Canada? I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see. But with that being said, I also, too, have a very small artificial tree that I put on my tabletop, and that's, made in China. So with the new tariffs, the toy industry executives say up to 40% of small to mid-sized manufacturers could go out of business before December. That's wild, folks. That is wild. Some of these businesses may not make it to the holiday season. So when President Trump has made statements that maybe kids, will have $2 out of 30, that's not just being flippant. That's a warning shot, Like, toys will have to be decreased, right? Just because the budget. How does a parent stretch that budget? It's end of the year expenses, right? You got to buy food for the holiday season. You still want to maintain so you don't go in debt before the year even wraps up. So that's the things that these parents are going to have to be able to think about in that calculus when it comes to their budget. But let's shift to what I call the heart of the American economy, small businesses. Some of you may not be familiar, but I was appointed commissioner to the United States Small Business Administration. So I have a very, very big affinity to small businesses, to entrepreneurs, to mom and pop shops. I believe that is the backbone of our economy. I think that is as American gets. We always think about, tariffs and the economy and the market from like this large scale corporate Fortune 500 perspective, but most of the businesses that make up America and keeps America running are small, mom and pop shops, small stores, right? Businesses are under 5 employees, right? Maybe some seasonal ones. So these are the ones that I often think about, and I'm always trying to encourage people to think about, too, as well. They're going to be hurting as a result of these tariffs that are coming in, all the way from brewery companies that are looking at to get special handles from their taps are now facing 130% tariffs. When you look at places in like Miami, the grocery stores are rationing even noodle shipments, 5 cases per customer. When before it was unlimited. You look at places like Chicago and like LA, they're raising their prices for their entrees by 8 to 10%, just to stay above water. One interesting data point when you think about this, particularly for restaurants, is that at least 40% of all tomatoes sold in the U.S., folks, comes from Mexico. But new 17% tariffs mean salsa, pasta sauces, not avocado toast garnish. Yeah, that got just a little bit more expensive for you. I'm telling you, folks, it's going to have an impact when you go to Chipotle and you ask for that guacamole. What is it now, $1, $2 upcharge? That's going to be a little bit more in the future. And I always say that we have to be mindful when we think about these policies. I remember I did a TED Talk years ago. I might repost that pretty soon, where I talked about the reason why people often don't participate in democracy because they often feel like these policies don't impact them. It's always for them, those, and others. But I've always tried to encourage that, that leather jacket that we all love to wear, that denim jacket we love to wear, those Nikes that we love to have in our feet, they all have a policy implication that got started in D.C. that dictates how we wear, what we wear, and how much we pay to wear those things. And I think now it's really coming back, unfortunately, in a real way that's having an impact on Americans. See, folks, I tried to warn y'all. I told y'all before I'm in my I told you so era. And so this is part of that I told you so era. I don't say that with glee. It's just, it's really unfortunate. But the big question is, what is the strategy here, right? What does this all mean? Because President Trump has made it clear he wants to decouple the U.S. economy from China. This means breaking our dependence on Chinese supply chains, forcing companies to reshore jobs in manufacturing and rebuilding American industries. On paper, folks, that may sound bold. In practice, it's messy because while we are pushing China away, China is responding. They're imposed 125% tariffs on most American goods. They ban imports from major U.S. poultry companies, and they're rerouting their trade networks through South America, Southeast Asia, and Africa markets. we're not guaranteed control, just like they did underneath Trump's first administration. And really, the idea is what Trump wants to do is to spur manufacturing, which is good. But the idea, though, is, as a former engineer who first job was General Motors working in the supply chain, I understand a lot about manufacturing. And to stand up a new manufacturing shop, it takes anywhere from 18 months to 24 months. So how do these companies do forecasting when they have to think about, 18, 24 months, will Trump still be here? No, because we're going to be looking into the next election, 2028. So does it still hold water for them to readjust their budget and their financing to rebuild manufacturing plants when a new president come in and can change the whole direction altogether? And particularly in manufacturing comes the automotive industry. Where are we with clean energy, right? There's some presidents who believe in clean energy and using renewable energy as a new source of industry and sector for the new manufacturing. So how do they take all that into account? But really, what's at stake here, right? Nearly 70 million Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Right? More than 4 million small businesses rely on imported goods. And industries from toys to textiles to tech are forecasting double-digit cost increases by Q4. And for workers, it's not about higher prices, right? It's about job security, inventory uncertainty, delayed expansion plans. Companies are already holding off from hiring or investing, just like they did in the early days of COVID. But when you think about this too, folks, like holiday seasonal workers, those are temp workers, right? Typically, people usually get holiday work in order to supplement their income. It's a chance for them to even get from temp to perm, as we say, from temporary jobs to permanent jobs. So a lot of these individuals, particularly in retail, use this to get their foot in the door, right? To come up with a new job or have a more of a full-time second job to help make, the ends meet. In the micro view, this trade war involves the two largest economies in the world, the U.S. and China, representing more than 40% of the global GDP. I'm going to give you some more data. As I begin to wrap, the S&P 500 has dipped into correction territory twice since March. The U.S. bond market saw, $1.4 trillion in value wiped out in days. Don't even get me started. The consumer confidence has hit a 5-year low, and inflation and risk are climbing again. In particular, as I was mentioning a little bit earlier in the conversation about, just not stocking the shelves with these supplies, which means limited supply, more demand, higher cost. All right, folks. And with that, I'm going to pause here. There's always going to be more to talk about this week ahead, but I am thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled